Can you see it now?
Yes, I can.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, so just a few housekeeping details. If you have a question or you need anything during the webinar, you can actually put something into the question pane, or you can just chat us, and then we'll answer your questions throughout. We'll also have time at the end. We shouldn't go, we likely don't go the whole hour, but feel free to ask questions. We're also recording the session, so if you're attending today, you'll get a copy of the recording sent out to you afterwards. If you have anything after today's session, you can, of course, email sales@sksoft.com. Many of you have already met Jennifer Courtney. She's our customer success manager. So if you're an existing customer using any of our payments modules today or want to implement them as part of your license, feel free to reach out to Jennifer Courtney and ask questions, get a statement of work, ask her about the licensing for anything that Chuck and Tina present today. I do realize that some of you all may be new to who we are, so if I can get my slides to work. Again, we've been in business about 30 years. We have over 1,600 customers globally using some flavor of the solution today, whether that's banking automation, some of our light treasury products, even some of these expanded features that we've had in the market for quite some time. Just wanted to throw that out there. Again, lots of the partners in the channel know of us as well, and I see some familiar names from the partner channel, so thank you for spending time with us today as well. What we do is integrate securely with banks around the world, and we do that through connectivity we call Bank Fabric, but then also offer a host of functional modules that help just make the lives of the finance and treasury folks that are using D365 better. Our driving value is to make the lives of those folks automating their daily banking processes in the exact format, in the connectivity with the bank as much as possible. Make that seamless and make your lives easier. That's really what gets us up in the morning. So one last pitch to you all. November 14th, we're going to do a webinar very similar to this, but we're going to be presenting two other functions. One is our brand new P-card integration that we've built in partnership with some other customers and requirements that we've heard a lot from our customers and partners over the years, and we finally built P-card integration. So we'll be presenting that on November 14th. And then what I would call an unsung hero here is supply chain financing. If you're working with a bank or a financing platform and you'd like to better integrate that into your D365 implementation, we have some customers that have implemented this not only in Europe, but here in North America, and are seeing significant time savings with our supply chain financing integration. So we'll be presenting both the P-card and supply chain finance modules on November 14th at this same time Eastern here very soon in the next week. So I'm going to hand this over to Chuck, and we're going to jump straight into the EFT expanded functions. I'm going to stop sharing and hand it over to you, Mr. Schrader.
Thank you. And hopefully you'll see a screen shortly here. So everyone can see the slide there on payment factory automation, I hope.
Looks good.
Okay, so payment factory automation, there's a couple of pieces there that help you to automate and speed up your whole payment proposal process. So there is a payment calendar that allows you to schedule out your payment proposals for the whatever time period you want. I know that one of our clients has a procedure where they basically in the fall of the year schedule out really all of their proposals for the following year, and then have them set to run in the morning. And when they come in every morning, the proposals for that day are sitting there in a payment journal ready for the review and the next step in that process. So Payment Factory allows you to do that. Creation of multiple journals at different intervals during the day or within the same day. It allows you to stack multiple proposals into a single journal if you want to do that. So if you have multiple pieces that all add into the same payment, maybe you have priority payments and then maybe some other type of payments you want to stack together, it allows that as well. It does support the AP EFT method of payment, but it also supports standard check runs or whatever as well. So standard E365 method of payments. You don't have to use this just for Treasury Automation controlled methods of payments. There is a switchboard. That's a very unique piece. Some of you might be familiar. Microsoft later came out with some similar functionality called payment automation. The switchboard, it makes that very distinct in that it allows you to more generically define your methods of payments and then let someone maybe at a treasury level kind of define what those become. And I'll show that a little bit as well. And the switchboard can not only adjust method of payment, but help designate the bank account for currency specific payments. So again, try to get more the control of the output of those payment journals into a kind of a one-time setup versus making sure that somebody runs the payment proposal correctly every time. So we'll switch over from this to a live demo for a second. And hopefully we get this to display. It was not participating well earlier, but I think we're in good shape now. So switchboard or payment factory, the starting piece of this is payment calendar. So under Treasury Automation, you'll see a payment factory, a payment calendar. Payment calendar is really just helping you automate, again, those proposals for a given period of time, whether it's for the next quarter or the next month or whatever the time period you want to generate them for. If I go to calendar generator, if you're familiar with the AP payment proposal process, hopefully it looks very familiar because a lot of these fields on here, especially once we get past the first couple here, are really all the same as the standard payment proposal. If I go in, I can pick a payment company, a journal name. I need to know what journal I'm generating these under. In this case, maybe, again, I want to generate for all of next year. So I could do that. If I have a regular Wednesday payment run, I could pick the day of the week or multiple days of the week if I wanted to run it there. Priority, if you have multiple things running on the same day at the same time, this would make sure it runs first. So if you had something that was maybe more specific, you might want to run that first and then run something generic after that. So I give it a description and a pay group. This pay group is what allows you to group multiple payment proposals in the same journal. Again, a distinction between that and payment automation, which doesn't allow that every payment proposal is its own journal in that case. So the rest of these, again, should look pretty familiar. Due date. The one thing that you'll notice differently is the from and to dates are date offsets. So these are relative to the day that this payment proposal is going to run. So since I'm going to run this every Wednesday all of next year, then I want to make sure that on that Wednesday, I'm grabbing stuff for the next 7 days. Total payment date. This is a low value payment run. So this is an overnight network. So we want to make sure that we date those 1 day out. So I'll set the payment date to 1 day out. If I wanted to have multiple payment dates occur, I could just leave this blank and it would just, again, work like the regular payment proposal where it'll generate it on due date or discount date. I come down here, this filter, I could set up whatever filters I want. I set up filter for this method of payment called low value. And then I'm going to go ahead and just click OK to generate the calendar for all next year. If I go through here and decide maybe this Wednesday that is around Thanksgiving, I don't want to have a date, something that's going to be value dated on Thanksgiving Day. So I can come in here and adjust individual dates, individual criteria on any particular payment run. The piece that I mentioned that kind of brings this together in terms of allowing you to control banks and methods of payments on the output. So again, the person's putting in the invoices could just simply know these are low value payments. Then the switchboard at payment proposal time will determine that low value payments. If they're going to, in this case, a vendor bank country that is Canadian, then that is cross-border. I'm assuming a US bank here. Otherwise, it's if a USA bank, then it is a regular CCD payment. So again, you can set up the proposal and the switchboard to work together to really have a lot of control over your payment process, get your payment process very consistent, very scheduled. And basically any of these criteria you see on the left side of the screen anything up to this this column here, the vendor bank country, is all inputs, and then this is helping you determine not only the bank account but the method of payment as on the output as well. So allows you to control. Again, this is kind of one-time setup, so there's not a lot of thinking or concentration that has to be done around running the individual proposals. It's kind of sorting these out for you as to the bank account I want to pay out of and the type of payment I want to make. I don't know if there's any questions that you saw. I saw a couple questions in there. Day 0 to day 6, there was a question about the date offset. So if I put a date offset of 1, that's going to give me anything that's due through tomorrow. So I guess technically on that payment run I ran, maybe I should have looked at day 8 because if I'm running it next Wednesday, I want things that are due maybe through that date as well. So the date offset is literally going to be from today, counting forward how many days that is. I don't know, Ainsley, or did you see any other questions in there relative to this? I don't think so. I think the
I'll
rest are
shout
kind
out that I did put the link to the November 14th webinar. It's in the chat for everybody, anyone that wants to register there. Oh, Tammy is asking a question. Can a different proposal be created for different payment methods?
Correct. So I could put in a payment method here, and then I could, right behind it, I could generate another one for the same exact group of days, but make it a wire payment method. And I could choose to put that in the same journal or not in the same journal. Also, there is a time of day here, so I could really schedule those down to, I want it to occur multiple, in a certain stack. There's a priority as well that allows you. So if I want my ACH payments to generate first, followed by the wire payments, generally it won't make a lot of difference in terms of order. I do have customers that have kind of a more generic proposal than they do some like priority payments that wouldn't necessarily fit a criteria. So they want to run those in a specific order. So between priority and allowing you to stack them into the same journal, you can get that to really order any way you want. There I saw another question around approval workflow. This is the payment proposal process. So we're just generating the journal. So the journal could have workflow or regular approvals attached to it. Tina, correct me if I'm wrong, but do we have a submit to workflow feature coming out shortly on this?
Yes, it should be coming out in our Q4 release.
Okay, so in the Q4 release, so if you got this fall release, what it does, it creates a proposal, then you could go ahead and submit it to workflow. In the winter release at the end of year here, then you will be able to automatically submit these to workflow, designate that on a particular one of these, that not only does it run the proposal, but it starts it through the workflow process as well. I will flip back to slides here and move on to the next subject. Will the description from the calendar be used as the journal batch description? Yes. So that'll become the journal batch description. And again, you'll be able to tell that, for instance, we want to make sure they have these named appropriately. So this is my Wednesday Bank of America low value run. So let me go back to the slides here. We'll talk about the next thing. So payment factory automation, again, a couple important distinctions. I know that there is payment automation now that does some of the automated payment proposals, but the switchboard functionality, the ability to stack journals, to prioritize journals, some of those are unique to this payment factory automation beyond the payment automation that's in standard D365. Oh, I think I bumped a few too many buttons here, so let's back up a second. There we go. Multi-company file. This is a situation if you have a lot of or multiple even legal entities that are all, I promise you I'm not pressing any buttons here. It's just kind of jumping forward on its own here. So the multi-company file, that is taking, again, it's mostly for if you have multiple legal entities or multiple payment runs that you want to join into the same file. So not only do you have let's say you have EFT in multiple legal entities and you have it set up there, but when you run it, it becomes an electronic payment file for that particular company. We want to join those all together. Many times the banks are charging you per file that you send to them. So we want to make sure that we can help you consolidate and save those costs as much as possible. We have several clients that have tens or even hundreds of legal entities, all generating electronic payment files. As you can imagine, the cost would stack up pretty significantly if they had to send all those files separately to the bank. What multi-company file does is allows you to designate which company is the sending company for a group of companies, and you can have one or multiple sending companies. And then it basically, when you go to the create and send process, it's going to join those together. Again, as you see there on the slide, a fee reduction for banks charging per file transmission, which many of them are. So I'll go back into the demo here for a little bit, our live product. And this, I'm not actually going to run through the whole process, just kind of show you how this works. So I'm in SKG right now in Treasury Automation. In parameters, when you set up AP EFT, one of the questions that ask is what is the sending company. So again, this is just combining the file. I didn't point that out on the slide. I should have pointed out a little bit better. This is not doing some intercompany. In fact, it helps you avoid a lot of the intercompany, but still have a common file that we're sending out. So if I go to electronic funds transfer and I go to AP EFT, so the create and send company, in this case, is the same company. Now I could go into SKG1, SKG EU, SKG AU New Zealand, and I can make all those point to the same ascending company if I wanted to. So when I do when I do the send later or send, or I guess really it's the send later, when I do the send later in those other companies, it's going to push those files, those payment journals over to this common file. SKG will be the company that sends them all out. So actually probably a bad example I just gave there. If you had different regions like that, you'd probably have all of your European entities roll up into a European sending company, and the same with Asia Pac or some other region or the Americas. So again, allows you to combine those. Whatever other companies have, whatever other legal entities have SKG as their sending company, it will all roll into this. And when I go to create and send, I'll see those journals from the other country that will be added into the same file. So multi-company file, again, no intercompany, but ability to send from a single place, save a lot on your files, especially, like I said, if you have tens or even hundreds of legal entities that deal with the same banks, can generate quite a bit of cost savings.
You have a question, does the multi-company single file make tracing issues more difficult?
The inbound still comes in the same, so it should not make those tracing those more difficult. There's within the file, and the banks, the formats, and most of the formats do, the formats need to support the multi-company file. Basically, it means they need a company ID in the header somewhere, which almost, again, most of the formats have that. So the bank still knows what company it's coming from. On the inbound, it's still going to push the inbound information back to the corresponding correct companies. So the round trip should all be the same. It's just that you're consolidating that create and send function to that single company. So it should not make...
On the payment journals, you will have the snapshot view, right? So you'll be able to see where it originated or where that file was. So from the payment journals, you can see the file that it's associated with.
Correct. So on accounts payable payment journal, and I'll show the screen just because this is kind of it wasn't meant to be a hidden gem, but I know a lot of people that aren't aware of this. But from a payment journal today, under inquiries, there's a screen called AP EFT Snapshot. So this will show you the, I don't have I picked the non-EFT one, of course. So if I go to one that has EFT in it and I pick EFT snapshot, it'll show me the journal that it went into. And fortunately, I probably don't have one.
You probably have to go to a posted one.
Yeah, I can go back to real quick to a posted one. Good thinking. We do these demos a lot. I should have a lot of posted ones here. So, so there we go. There's a transferred one. So I can go to lines and I can go to inquiries, AP EFT snapshot. And maybe this one got reversed. So actually, Tina, I think a lot of these got reversed.
I think if you go to a newer one, right, because this was from an older environment, I think if you sort by.
We can try it. Yeah, once you reverse, they pull back out. So I think a lot of these have been reversed, but in any case, we can kind of still show the screens here. But the AP, this inquiry screen, AP EFT snapshot, it'll show you the file number that it went in. If I click on this, it's going to navigate to that one. So again, should be able to trace all the way through, just as if you were doing it in a single company. Any other questions on that before I go to the bank to bank?
No, but I'm not sure that you have the slide, so I was gonna share my screen.
Okay.
I realized that the PowerPoint might have hidden it, so let me share my screen. Okay, so you all should see the bank-to-bank transfer slide. So Chuck, if you want to talk through it, then I'll switch back with you and you can show the good stuff.
Right. So again, we called this whole webinar EFT Expanded. In the EFT family, there is AP EFT, there's direct debit, customer reimbursement we're going to talk about after this, and bank-to-bank transfer. All of those you'll see follow the same general pattern. You start in a journal, you do the send now or send later, you do the create and send process. So AP EFT and direct debit, I think everyone's pretty aware what those do. What bank to bank is I have two of my own banks. Maybe I have an account with Wells Fargo. I have other accounts with Chase, and I just want to transfer money from my Wells Fargo account to my Chase account. There's no vendor involved. So the bank to bank transfer is made for that purpose. I can do everything else inside of D365. I don't want to have to sign on to the bank portal to initiate that transfer and then come back to D365 and manually write a journal entry to record that same transfer. Bank to bank is initiating those transfers from within D365 to move money between your own accounts. So again, the second bullet point there, it's not dual entry where you're entering something that's banked and re-recording it in a journal. It can use the same, it's really just all one process that gets both done. The comment at the end there, you'll see that on multiple of the slides about using the same format. This is sometimes misunderstood as well. Our licensing is built around the number of formats that you use. And but those do not double count if they're used for multiple purposes or across multiple legal entities. So ACH is one of those that is very flexible. Wells Fargo Payment Manager is one that's very flexible in terms of if I use it for outbound, for instance, ACH, I could use it for AP EFT, I could use it for direct debit, I could use it for bank-to-bank transfer, and use it for customer reimbursements because it supports bidirectional funds. It would count as a single format, even though I'm using it for all 4 modules across 5 legal entities. So can you do that between companies? Yes. Oh, I see Tina already answered. Thanks, Tina. There was a question in the chat about can you, I don't know if everyone can see the whole webinar chat, but.
Yeah, and I'll stop sharing so you can start to share your screen.
Okay.
But if you have standard D365 intercompany accounting configured, then to Kelly's question, you can do this bank-to-bank transfer between companies. Isaac is saying SKG centralized payment, how does it work with D365 out of the box?
We really follow the same rules as the standard centralized payment. So if centralized payments allowing you to pick invoices from multiple legal entities, combine it to a single journal, the proposal has a checkbox on there that says, do you want these split into separate, by legal entity or not? But we follow along with the same kind of standard D365 process there.
But that doesn't do anything with bank to bank. That's more on.
Oh, bank to bank. Yeah, that's not really related to bank to bank. Bank to bank, again, is really just an account to an account transfer. We don't really follow there's really nothing with centralized payments there. If you have permissions for that bank account or that legal entity, it'll let you pick it. So we will go back into this. The format screens, I won't go into these for all of them, but the formats, you can see that format is either enabled or not enabled. Once it's enabled, it's really enabled for all four, but you can see some formats are set for AP EFT. If you don't see a format in the bank-to-bank list, you just simply ask for a port. We don't charge to make those ports, but to make something available for bank-to-bank or customer reimbursement that's currently not available for that, it is used. The format screens work for all those. So any format that we have, or really as Ainsley says, we've never been a bank we haven't liked. So if we don't have the format at all, we can add it to our library. If we have the format, but it's just not currently set up for bank to bank or customer reimbursement, you just need to request that port. So there's a question about initiating the transfer. So we'll actually go through an example here. Just like every other EFT family, we always start with a journal. So this is a bank transfer journal. I should have pointed that out here. So under Treasury Automation bank transfer journal is where I went. If I go in here and click new, I'll just make a new one from scratch. There we go. And we go to lines. And then we're going to jump into, you'll see the names target and originating account or initiating account. We had a little trouble with making sure we named these things properly. On everything else, there's only one bank involved. So just saying bank account was good enough. With bank to bank, it got a little bit tricky because it's two bank accounts involved with everything. So the naming we went with is target and initiating. By the way, these can go either direction. So we can do a push transaction or a pull transaction. This initiating account, think of that as that's the bank or bank account that you're sending this create and send to. So let's say we have a lockbox account and we want to pull money into our concentration account. So we could pick the SKG concentration account here. Not sure where it went to. There it is. So pull money in. The transfer methods. The transfer methods you set up like a method of payment. You attach it to a bank account, and we can just veer off just a little bit here, but you tell it what direction it is. Is it a transfer in? Is it a pull or a push, basically? And then also the file format and the bank transaction type that you're going to get assigned to these. So I go in here and I pick this ACH in. I can pick CCD. And I should be all set there. It's US currency. I'm going to go ahead and pick the send now process here and just go through this the more quick route. And that was what you would need to do to, sorry. Looks like I missed a setup step there this morning, but anyways, so this is what pushes the push the file. If I go then to create and send, if I go to bank create and send, this is the same create and send process. If you're familiar with AP EFT, this is the same process that would go through that there's a create and send process. Again, normally I would think in bank to bank that you are pushing those all the way through with the send now versus the send later, but this is create and send would finish that process. The same with the rest of the process, the inbound process coming back in. You'll get the inbound response. From the bank's perspective, they're really none the wiser that you're transferring something to another one of your accounts, especially if it's with a different bank than if you're just paying a vendor. So the inbound process really works the same to them. If you look at some of our inbound processing, especially in the communications, you'll see that it's more generic now. It's not specific to a module because, again, the bank is sending back an electronic funds response. They're not really sure if it was bank to bank or if it was AP EFT on our end. Any questions about the bank to bank process or what you would use that for? It looks like there's some questions.
Robert's asking, wouldn't the target account be the debit?
It depends on if you're pushing or pulling. So if you're pushing money or pulling money, I guess, we tried to line it up. And again, this screen was a little tricky to come up with the right way to do this. What we settled on was try to make it as much like the original, like the other EFT products. And there's still been some debate after that. So Robert, I understand your input on that. There's been debate on that. The one kind of school of thought was try to make it like the other modules. So on any other module, this bank is the bank where you're sending it to. This bank is the target really would be in, let's say, an APFT, the target is a vendor, or in direct debit, the target is a customer. So this is arranged like the other screens. So, but we've had other comments about kind of flipping these around as well. Any other questions there?
Just to confirm, Chuck, you can use this for intra or interbank transfers, right? Transfers within accounts at the same bank and transfers to accounts at different banks.
Right. So the if you don't have, for instance, if you don't have the bank doing sweeps for you, you could use this to transfer money between your own accounts at the same bank. A lot of times, if you have a complicated banking arrangement there, then you'll have some of those internal ones doing sweeps. But the between bank accounts is what we've seen at different physical banks is what we've seen, especially people that have a lot of kind of disparate locations. So maybe my corporate banks with PNC, but I have locations that aren't anywhere near a PNC. They have daily deposits. So we can't all be at the same bank. So then they use this to transfer money into the corporate account from those disparate locations. But yes, it could be used, and if you don't want to pay the bank to do automatic sweeps, you could use this to manually do your sweeps as well.
I could be putting you on the spot, so I owe you if I am. But, I don't think we mentioned what's on the roadmap that could assist with the bank-to-bank transfer module and added value around the floor. Did you mention that and I missed it?
We did not mention that. So on the near-term roadmap for this module, for the exact scenario I just mentioned, let's say that you're a restaurant would be a prime example. I have 200 restaurants. My corporate banks with Bank of America, but not all of my restaurants are near Bank of America. Corporate pays all the bills. Really, I don't want much of any accounts in all the other places. So, but again, some of my restaurants might only be near non-Bank of America type of banks. So the thought there is that we are able to set up a automated pool, and you set up a floor. So I want all my retail locations to have a $1,000 balance or $2,000 balance at the end of the day. But any money beyond that gets deposited, I want to automate the pool. So we'd like to set up, again, so on the near term horizon in design right now is the ability to set up a floor for all these individual locations, and then have it generate this, basically this proposal or this journal for you based on those predetermined amounts.
You heard it here first, folks. Unless you were at Summit and we made Chuck tell you about it in the booth. If you guys have any other questions, just continue to put them in the chat and we'll pose them. I think we've got something else to present after this, right?
Right. So
We
now we'll
do.
move on to the customer reimbursement. I guess the final piece we haven't talked about yet for the EFT family.
Yes. So customer reimbursements, this is our module, and it is supporting reimbursing customers through accounts receivable. So you don't have to transfer those balances over to AP module and have a vendor related to them. So the payment proposal, which we will see in a few minutes, it will retrieve customers with a credit amount, and you can use your standard D365 filtering to determine what criteria you want to use to pull those in. So it doesn't have to be everything, same as any standard D365, you have those filters. The customer reimbursements, we do have bank account approvals for this as well. So if somebody, you want to make sure that the bank accounts are approved before reimbursing those customers, you can add that functionality in there as well. You can use your standard D365 workflow or approval journals on these journals as well. And if you're using the same format, as Chuck said before, as you're using in any of our other modules, it doesn't count as an additional format license. The customer reimbursement formats are pretty much identical to the AP EFT, although they do have to be added to the customer reimbursement format library because we're getting information from different places. There's a question, does the credit have to be in total or can reimburse one transaction? So you can reimburse one transaction. Yeah, so we'll see that. So now we're just going to go into the system and we are going to do a customer reimbursement journal. So this is in the accounts receivable module, and we have added a customer reimbursement journal here. And I'm going to go do a payment proposal for this. So this selection criteria here in the top, this comes from my Treasury Automation suite parameters. And so we can set defaults here. And in my environment, I'm allowing a user to override the defaults that we set. So some of these are familiar, I think, but the minimum days to or minimum amount. So this means that, you know, maybe I don't want to reimburse the customer unless it is at least $50 that we owe them. The minimum payment date. So how long has it aged and set on our books? You know, maybe if it just happened, you know, we posted it yesterday, we don't want to do anything. Oh, actually, that's just minimum days of reimbursement. You know, if we just got the payment yesterday or the credit, we want to wait a while because there might be an invoice to apply it to. The include customer invoices. So I'm going to run this with this on, and then we'll see it with it off. But this is if the customer has an invoice out there, should we offset the invoice and the credit? Now, I'm just going to run it like this, and then I'll have to turn it off because I would not be able to pay them because their invoice is more than their refund. I am filtering just for one customer account, but of course you can always filter by customer group or multiple customers if you want to. And I'm just going to put in my payment date here and click OK. And it is going to bring up nothing. Let me, that's because I have my minimum days for reimbursement set to 7. So we'll see, hopefully, we'll see this work in just a second. Okay, perfect. You'll see I have 3 out there. I have the invoice as well as the 2 credits that I have on this customer account. Same as with standard, you can remove this if you wanted to remove one of these transactions. I'm just going to hit cancel and run this again with that invoice flag to not include that invoice, so we can see what those differences look like. And this resets every time because this is coming from my TAS parameters. So this selection criteria, we will see here, it will reset each time because that is what we said as our default. And let me just put in a date here. And now I expect to just have those 2 credits out there. So you can see I have the 2. One was actually, looks like a free text invoice, a negative free text invoice, and the other one was an overpayment. So I'm going to go ahead and click Create Payment. Now in my TAS parameters, because you guys would not have this set up on your customers, we have our method of payment. So if I go into my method of payment here, we will see that it is tied to a customer reimbursement. And in TAS parameters, I'm saying this is the method of payment I want to use for my reimbursement. And if I look here, here is my format. I'm going to go ahead and validate this. So this is going to validate, hopefully you guys are all, well, you might all be familiar, but validate any of our modules. So bank to bank has this customer reimbursements, direct debit, and AP EFT. It just makes sure that we have everything that we need on that customer in order to be able to pay that. So if we're paying a ACH, do we have a routing number and account number? Those types of things. So do we have everything needed to pay it? So I'm going to go ahead and validate. And my journal is okay. So now I can go ahead and create my file. I'm going to go ahead and do send now. So this, of course, is the best automation here. And Chuck did mention the snapshot earlier. So from the payment journal, you can go ahead and look at this and go say function or inquiries. You can see we don't have that for customer reimbursements. We will be adding this in our Q4 release. So in Q4, you'll be able to go from inquiries and get down to that snapshot the same way that Chuck showed when he was going over the multi-company. But if I go into my Treasury Automation suite here, under accounts receivable, I will see my create and send customer reimbursement. And I will see my file here. We also support those inbounds. So like on your AP EFT, if you're getting that inbound file back, we can read in an inbound file for the customer reimbursements as well. And it will go ahead and update the lines as either accepted or rejected, or I guess approved or rejected, really. So if your bank is able to send those inbound acknowledgement files back, we can go ahead and do that piece. And that would here, if we come in here and begin processing, since I'm not actually getting a file back from the bank, I'm going to click begin processing, and it will go ahead and post that journal and complete this file. Now we don't have email support for customer reimbursement because generally they know that they're coming. So we don't have that at this time, but this will post that journal. Maybe it's just taking a second. Can this only be used with EFT, not checks? So it can be used only with AP EFT. If you are doing bank printed checks, you can do checks. So it doesn't have to be ACH or wires. You can use bank printed checks as well. So the minimum days of reimbursements, what that does is if I have it set to 7 days and the customer issued an overpayment today, it is not going to pick up because the payment was posted today or on 11/7. So it wouldn't pick up in my proposal today. It would in 7 days past today, it would go ahead and pick that up. Or like in my case, that's why it originally did not work. Yep. So the banking information is entered on the customer in your customer setup. So if I go to my line details here, and you'll see we also have the reverse posted payment here. So if the bank comes back and says, after they accepted it, that it was rejected, you can reverse that. But let's go into our customer account here. And if I go to my bank account, it is set up just as a bank account on the customer. Now, I have turned off my approvals here because I had to pay this guy and needed to turn off the approval for it. But this does have those approvals on these bank accounts used for customer reimbursement, which means that if I had that enabled and I entered this bank account information, the customer, we would not be able to reimburse them until somebody else had approved the bank account information. If you're doing bank printed checks, that does not require that approval. It's only if you're using like ACH or wire where you have that bank account number or that routing number set up. Any other questions?
Is that a one-time approval for each time used?
Nope, it's one time for the bank account. So when you first enter it, it is going to require an approval. And then if you make any changes to your account number, your routing number, SWIFT, IBAN, things like that, it will require an additional approval. So it's not each time it's used, it's each time, it's when it's set up and every time. Are we going to add email functionality to the customer? I am not sure. We do have this in as an enhancement, but it has not yet gone through the PMF process for approval. So there is a possibility, but right now we do not have that on the roadmap.
Yeah, this is a pretty good group of people. There's like over 100 folks on this webinar. So if you guys want to join hands with Paula and put a vote out for email functionality to the customer, happy to hear it. Just you can email us or put it in the chat. As you just heard the reference to PMF, that's our product market fit committee here. And most of you know Chuck and Tina, you know me. We are constantly looking for enhancements, ways to improve the solutions we've already put out to the market, adding new code. We have 4 releases a year. And everything we do, as most of you know us very well, is driven by our customers and partners and what you want to see us build for you or enhance in the modules that we have today. So just planting that seed, and really any function that we've delivered to the market or that you're using today, feel free to send it in to us. And then as Tina said, it'll go through our product market fit process. But happy to take your chats here. I know we've got some time, so any additional questions, there you go. You're all, Paula, you're in good company here. So we'll take that. But again, if there are any questions, I think we're done for what we wanted to present. But if you've got any questions around payment factory, bank-to-bank transfer, multi-B company, EFT, oh, go ahead, Tina.
All right, there is a question, one more on customer reimbursement at least. Does it go through workflow? So if I look at the journal that I used for this, it is a journal type of customer payment. So yes, you can put either workflow approval on it, that standard D365 approval workflow, or the approval functionality there. So either one is supported. So yes, you can have it do that.
Lots of yes votes for email, Tina.
Yes.
There you go. You all just made Tina's job much easier when she comes to the product committee. Just prints out all of the yes votes. I think, does Heidi have a question around bank to bank?
Yes. Do we automatically bring in the FX rate information? We do not automatically adjust the journals there. If the bank sends in FX information on the inbound, we can show that to you, but we don't automatically adjust. We've done that in some very specific cases as a one-off customization that's come up before. but we have not implemented that in the product yet. That's a good suggestion, though.
And Wayne's asking a very good question, and I won't throw Chuck's email out here, but he wants to know who he can email for product market fit suggestions. Feel free to email sales@sksoft.com. If you have another contact, let's say you're on a project with us right now, you can of course send that into the consultant that you're working with. Most of you have my email, ainsley@sksoft.com. But the sales email is monitored by a bunch of us, and so we'll take that suggestion and submit it to the product team for you as well. Tammy had a question about remittances. Can we email remittances for EFT or credit card payments like we do for ACH? I think I read that right.
So EFT, I guess the question, AP EFT, we can email. We can, those aren't really dependent on the type of payment that we're making. Anything in EFT can send a remittance out. Credit card is kind of a different, it depends. Are you talking about virtual cards? For us, virtual cards, if you're talking about virtual cards, when you're talking about credit card payments, the virtual cards are just another method of payment, payment spec, or another format payment spec. So yes, they can send out emails. Anything that's really tied to APFT can send an email out. We don't really distinguish between the type of payment. So credit card payments, other EFT payments can send those out.
Okay, we've got a couple more minutes if you all have more questions. Tammy, I have the action item for you, so I'll reach out and get you some more information there on how to set those up.
So there is a question with Rachel about the payment calendar combining these. So really, Rachel, what we generally recommend, if I can find my payment calendar, sorry, there we go, is when you set these up, you want to have a different pay group, and then it will not combine them. Right, so if I go to like my calendar generator, if I put in here a pay group, this is really what will combine it or not combine it. So if I do this one ACH here, and then I do another one for wire, it will not combine based on that pay group, right? So otherwise, it will combine those journals into, if there's a journal out there in a status, if I run 5 journals today, it will combine them. So you want to use your pay group to get those separated. I don't know if you're doing that today, but we can look at your ticket if you have a number out there for us.
And yes, Tony, we will send the recording to everybody that's attended, and then of course we'll have it available. If you're a partner on the line and you'd like to share this with others, you can of course send that recording. We trust your judgment. But it'll be sent out to everybody that's attended today. Just a couple minutes left. Any other last questions?
There's a question about vendors that are authorized to charge a corporate card. Those payments are not initiated from within D365. So all of our email functionality is really built around payments that are initiated from D365. So if someone's reaching in and charges your corporate card, again, that's not a D365 initiated payment. So we wouldn't have any email functionality around that.
But you might be interested in our P card integration, depending on what kind of card it is, if you want to come to our webinar next week. Okay, it looks like the questions have slowed down.
There was a question around the journal description not updating correctly, and it had logged a bug. That sounds like a bug to me as well. So.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, Rashid, we see that in the chat, and Chuck's got that noted for you.
Yes, and that's the one I was saying. It's really not the description. It is the pay group that determines whether or not it is going to combine it in a journal, right? So the pay group is critical on it combining not or versus not combining.
The description, I thought the description though transferred over to the journal itself.
It should, so we can look at that one, but the
Yeah.
pay group is the combination, which I think was the other point in her.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry,
Okay.
I might have misstated that.
Okay, we'll let you all have a great rest of your day. Tina and Chuck, thanks for putting this presentation together and further just continuing to grow our products. To the partners and customers on the line, thank you for all that you do with SK. If you're new to SK, just reach out to sales@sksoft.com and we'll tell you more about us. And again, you'll get the recording. If you have any questions about what you've seen today, please reach out to us or your partner, and we're happy to get you more resources. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Thanks, Tina. Thanks, Chuck.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.